Kia ora, and welcome back to We Do B2B, the podcast by Blue Ocean where we unpick the ins, outs, ups and downs of B2B marketing here in Aotearoa, New Zealand. I'm your host, Dale Kerner, and I'm a B2B marketer like you. From emerging trends in thinking to inspiring real-world stories from smart, good people here in New Zealand, we're here to help the New Zealand B2B marketing community to become one of the best and brightest anywhere in the world. If, like me, you're a B2B marketer looking for a place to connect, learn, and be inspired, you have come to the right place. Welcome to We Do B2B. We are at Southern SaaS 2024 today for what we're calling the Southern SaaS Sessions, where we're talking to some really inspiring marketers, product owners, founders, CTOs, COOs, everything, the whole gamut. And right now, we are starting our conversations with Lucy Mansfield, who is the VP of Growth at Lumin. Lucy, welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
It's always an interesting environment coming to something like this. You know, you come in and you've got the coffee and you've always got that trade-off, like, how many muffins do I take? Should I have 3, 4? Always fun and games. But we'll start off by a little bit of background about you, Lucy. Tell us about yourself. We were just talking before we switched the cameras on about the journey from your bougie cubicle when Lumin started off to now what is a very, very flash office space. So it sounds like it's been quite the journey for you.
Yeah, it really has. So I was the first hire in New Zealand for Lumin. So Max Ferguson, the CEO, started Lumin in 2014 from his bedroom in Silicon Valley while he was studying his PhD. And I applied for the role and ended up getting it, but little did I know I would be the only one there in a bougie cubicle.
Yeah.
You know, it was great feng shui. And it was just myself. So we kind of worked remotely together, growing the business. And fast forward to today, we have 15 people in New Zealand. We've got a really large office right in the city centre in Christchurch, and over 100 people globally working for Lumin.
What a journey. So for the viewers at home who don't know, tell us what Lumin is. What does Lumin do?
Yes, yeah, good question. So the simple way to put it is Adobe Acrobat and DocuSign had a younger child. We would be the more modern, sexier, faster version of that. So essentially we take documents, contracts, proposals, anything document related, and make it easy in the cloud. We integrate with Google Workspace, so everything that you do in Google Drive and Gmail and Calendar, you can transform that document into Lumin and then get it back into the Google ecosystem.
Now I think about it, I'm pretty sure I've used it over the years as well. I can picture back in Australia when we were living over there like 10 years ago, when we were buying houses and things like that. You know,
Yeah.
How am I going to sign this thing in the middle of... Yeah, so that's your space.
Yes, that's our space.
But on a commercial level, presumably, as well.
Yes, well,
Yeah.
we have a free version, which is great because we think products like this should be accessible to everyone. No, not everyone has a printer or a fax or a scanner.
And they still suck in 2024. I'm sorry, printers are awful. I don't understand how they're still hard. So you bypass that completely, right?
Yes, we remove the need to have that hardware as such, and we replace it with a beautiful software that works every time, and it's free. We have paid versions for more complex features like security and further editing.
I love your analogy about being the sexier younger child. We were talking to David Downs from the New Zealand Story Group a couple of weeks back, and one of the things that they talk about at the New Zealand Story Group is this concept of pōtikitanga, which is like having the spirit of the younger child, being the one that's a little bit more rebellious, that kind of, you know, other people have blazed the trail so they can come through and be a little bit more free to kind of chart their own course and do things differently. So I love that parallel there. So 15 people here in New Zealand now and all based down in Christchurch?
Yes.
Yeah, and where's the rest of the team?
So we have a really large team in Vietnam,
Okay.
so Ho Chi Minh.
Yeah.
And then we have a team in the Philippines. And then we've actually just hired our first hire in the US, and he's based out of Denver.
Oh, okay. Well, that sounds like a terrible itinerary. Have to go and visit all the teams.
Oh,
I mean,
no.
I'm just thinking through like the food in Vietnam and the Philippines. That sounds like a dream trip.
It's great because it really exposes us to so many different cultures and way of working, which I think when you look at it as a whole, it really creates the innovation and diversity for the product that we're building, because we're operating at a global scale. It's so important for us to experience the diversity of these cultures.
And the way that working rhythms work in those different places as well. I mean, things like what do people have access to, and even things like how many screens do the people in those worlds and those office spaces have in the Philippines versus, there's all of those different things that I suppose you have to kind of take into consideration.
Absolutely. And even just, having our product in multiple languages. It's something that a lot of businesses in New Zealand don't think about.
Yeah.
But not everyone in the world can speak English. In fact, not many people can. So
proportionately, I suppose, when you put it that way, absolutely. Yeah. So one of the things that we are going to get into a little bit later on is the topic of education and access and empowering the next generation, which we will get to. But I'd like to know a little bit more, first and foremost, about your role as VP of Growth. What does that involve? What does a day in the life look like for you?
Yeah. Growth it's an interesting term, so it's heavily used in the US, and essentially it repositions the general marketing term, and it takes the growth team and puts it at the center of the business. So we can kind of work cross-functionally with sales, operations, developers, designers, and we're centered around the key metrics of marketing, like acquisition, conversion, retention, and expansion. But we're not limited to just a marketing team.
I love that. The idea of making marketing the hub and everything else as a spoke.
Right? Genius.
That lights me up.
Yeah.
And have you worked in organisations where that wasn't the case? Because you've obviously had some experience before Lumin as well. So.
Yeah, I have. So I've worked with the larger corporates and then smaller startups and everything in between. And I found that kind of the larger organisations with more of the corporate structure, marketing was a byproduct of the company, in the sense their only job is to bring in leads to essentially support the sales team. And it's so much more than that when you look at what's happening in terms of the market itself. How do we position a product? How do we go to market with the product? What do our customers actually need? What's the journey that they go through to get to finding that product?
I think it makes so much sense to see it kind of, like you said, smack bang in the middle and make marketing the hero of that scenario. What are the other business functions that you couldn't do without?
The other business functions that we couldn't do without?
From a marketing perspective, who adds the most value to the marketing skill set and thinking in your camp, without throwing anyone under the bus by exclusion?
Yeah, I think at Lumin we go through periods of really focusing on one particular function, and we kind of put all of our efforts into doing that until we see success, and then we focus on something else. So right now, something that is working really well for us is product-led growth, in the sense of SEO, research, and going to market with products that people have high intent and demand for.
Yep.
So we do a lot of research, we do a lot of data analysis, we use AI to cleanse that data, and then we create essentially marketing strategies driven by SEO and intent to fuel that demand. Cool.
What are you most proud of that you've achieved as VP of Growth at Lumin? I'm sorry, I know it's like the award speech kind of question, but
okay. Well, yeah, I mean, I love the data, the creativity, but at the end of the day, I'm a people person, and for me, having a culture that fosters inclusivity and ambition and helps people grow and be passionate in their role really fills me up. So I think, starting out as the only hire, and then now I'm leading a team of 7 people, helping them grow into their career and learn and provide a culture that really fosters that passion and ambition. That's what gets me going. And
that's a lovely segue as well, because we put the question out in advance of recording this. What did you want to talk about, and what did you want to kind of cover off? And like we touched on earlier on, education and empowering the next generation is something that you'd flagged as, let's talk about that. So I think a great segue from what you're saying there around building a culture and being proud of that kind of growth of people aspect. So take me through the education space. Why is that a topic that you wanted to cover off on?
Yeah, look, it's something that it's kind of sat with me for a long time. When I was at high school, I never knew that working in tech or software was an option. I didn't even know that it existed. I was studying, still didn't think about it, wasn't aware of it. No one talked to me about it. There was no education, there was no awareness. And I think coming through now and figuring it out myself and going down this career journey, and it's very similar for a lot of the people in the Lumin office, we're all kind of mid-30s or younger. We didn't know that tech exists. And now when I look at what's happening in high school and primary school and even university, there's no communities, there's no awareness, there's no one speaking and empowering them about what a career in tech could look like. And that you don't just need to be a developer, you don't need to know how to code. We need skills like business management, marketing, design, project management, finance. These are skills that tech companies, software companies need right now. And we can't find them.
I mean, really interesting. The starting intro speech from Bruce this morning was talking about that exact challenge, that we've got this incredible pipeline of software as a service and tech firms growing in New Zealand, but we're going to run out of people. Yeah,
he was saying in 15 years we need an extra 60,000 people. Where are these people coming from?
So, from your perspective, how does that conversation change? How do we? I mean, I've got 4 young kids.
Yes.
How does my 8-year-old daughter find out that there's a pathway for her in this industry, which at that age is so intangible?
Yes, and that's where I think having role models and a community in this space, people that can communicate and inspire. So probably of a younger age, going into these schools, into these universities, and creating a network or a community or a program or a certificate, getting them excited about what it's like, how they're interacting with these technology tools every day, speaking their language. I think we need more role models in this space.
And who do you see sort of filling that space of the role model?
Hey, me.
Yours truly. Yeah.
Imagine that.
But I love that. To be honest, I think sometimes it takes a few protagonists within a space to be able to put their neck on the line, put their hand up, and say, "Hey, I actually think we should do something here." So.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you look at all of the companies that are going to need to pull into this talent pool, this up-and-coming talent pool, it's almost an investment for them it's in their best interest to empower and inspire and educate this generation to consider them as an option.
Yeah. And like you said, it's beyond just the dev side of things as well. I mean, there's fantastic careers to be had in that, don't get me wrong. Very, really well paid, and like Bruce would always say, low access barriers, I suppose is the right way to put that. You can do that through short courses and everything else like that, but it's some of those other things that sit around the periphery, like you said. It's that encouraging that marketing mindset. It's that commercialization aspect as well, I suppose.
Yeah,
and there's some great endeavors that do go on in that space, but it's how do you pair that with a sector that kids don't yet understand? I mean,
well, they do. Like, they know how to use the iPhone probably better than us now.
Yeah, that's true. Actually. Yeah.
They know what technology can do. They just don't know how it's built, where it's built. The kind of framework and the foundation of what it's built on. More of the technical side, and they almost think it's just second nature. They don't know that someone's had to create it or think about it.
I've done our children a disservice. I'm interested to know then, so we've kind of talked about the younger end of the spectrum. How about through the universities? How about at the sort of higher education sector? Because it feels to me like there's a little bit of a gap there sometimes, and things kind of slow down. They're not necessarily as current with a lot of the things that are being discussed and used in the practical world as the practical world is.
Yeah, no, you're right. And again, I think it comes down to how do they communicate and absorb information. Yes, going to university is the conventional, traditional way, but they're on social media. They probably need a role model on social media talking through what technology looks like, how it works, how they can get into it. They want to consume this information probably outside of their lecture on social, but then they also would probably want someone coming in and maybe a bit of a network or a community that they can join. But it needs to be aspirational, and they need to speak the same language.
So what you're saying is that we need to put loads more people through the We Do B2B podcast to share the story.
Yes. Or start a new one aimed at the younger generation even.
I love that aspect of the whole community here, though. I mean, like, I'm so grateful to people like yourself who are happy to come and, you know, put themselves out of their comfort zone, sit in a boardroom at a conference that they should be listening to, and take the time to actually kind of share some of those stories and share those perspectives. Because, I mean, for us, that's definitely part of the drive here is that knowledge dissemination piece. And I'd love to think that a conversation here right now with you could impact someone in 10 years' time, you know. And I don't know if we have that legacy. Here's, you know, crossing fingers, here's hoping. But it would be great to see that, you know, having these conversations is actually starting to shift the understanding of what's possible
Yeah, absolutely.
for that younger generation.
Yeah, I agree. Just on that, are you on Spotify or Apple, both?
We're on both. Yeah.
Do you do keyword research for those platforms?
Oh, you're gonna embarrass me now because I know.
Because
Producer Louis looking at me, raising his eyebrows and going, "Have you?"
Sorry, didn't mean to put you.
No, I love that. How would you do it?
Well, so what I've started doing is researching platforms to do this, and there's not many that exist. So now it's a manual process for me going into Spotify and Apple and doing it manually.
Mm-hmm. All right, okay, I can hear a plan hatching here.
Yeah. But it's really useful. So we now have a team that does this for us. We don't have, we're not on Spotify, but for the App Store we do it. So we have a team that do this for us, and we see great results from it because people are searching keywords.
So you're basing your product strategy on search, basically?
Well, for the App Store, it's almost like a Google search in the sense of PDF editor or e-sign.
Yep.
So we just make sure that we are competing for those keywords organically and paid.
Yeah. Okay. No, it makes good sense. And are you finding that there's opportunity in there for innovation? You know, are you finding anything that kind of sits on the periphery that isn't currently core business or core product?
Yeah, absolutely. That's where a lot of our jobs to be done approach comes in. Are you familiar with
I love
that?
Clayton Christensen.
Yes.
May he rest in peace.
Right.
It's part of our orientation 101, that value proposition design. Everyone must read that before they turn up on day one.
Absolutely. And there's a good podcast on it too.
Okay.
Look, we live by that, and we're constantly educating everyone in the company what it's about.
Yeah.
Now everyone's on board with it, and it's a beautiful thing, right? It's psychological, it's emotional, it's functional, and it brings everything into one distilled kind of concept of what someone's trying to achieve. So we really live and breathe that, and then a lot of our data analysis, SEO, trend analysis kind of feeds in around the outside to solidify what we're doing in the middle.
What was the most unexpected job to be done that you guys have discovered? Because I'm fascinated by this stuff.
Yeah, so, okay. It's probably not overly fascinating, but it was something that we've noticed. I hope this doesn't give away our trade secret.
We can always strip it out if it does.
No, it's fine. Like we'll do it better anyway.
We'll swap the word PDF for crocodile or something like that. We'll be fine.
So reputation, so social, financial, being the hero in the workplace, having a reputation of I'm the king, I'm the boss, I've got it. You know, that kind of the ego-driven reputation is a huge thing in business, in the workplace. No one wants to look like the underdog. No one wants to sound like the underdog. So really playing into that and fueling in a wholesome, holistic way, right? We're not wanting to feed the ego. But really playing on setting reputation as the key driver.
What really interests me in that whole line of conversation is that, you know, when you look at that traditional, we'll come back to the education space, you come back to that traditional view of B2B. And I was taught at the University of Bath, which is one of the top marketing schools in the UK, we were taught that business-to-business purchasing is rational. And we were taught that it's logical and that it's factual.
Yep.
Not egotistical and socially driven and concerned about my own reputation and image. So how do you balance that emotional, social, functional mix.
Yes, that is a challenge, and I think it comes down to the messaging and the creative really needs to speak to the kind of emotional side, and then when we capture their interest, we start to speak to more of the kind of functional, practical, the pricing, the security. Does it have what they actually need to get it across the line? So I think it's that perfect mixture of both. Sometimes we swap out the order. We do a lot of A/B tests around, do they want this first or do they want that first? But that really kind of feeds into the experience of them understanding the product and doing more information to get that insight.
We always will try when we're working on, and again, you've said messaging and creative, which are like two of my hot buttons.
Yeah.
We'll always try and position for the head and the heart. So we'll always try and have that emotional driver that's understanding what is this person actually trying to aspire to? What makes them feel, it might be what makes them feel safe, what makes them feel excited, what makes them feel proud.
Yes.
And then what also helps them go, hey, sign off, please.
Yeah. It's so beautiful, isn't it? It's funny when we talk to our developers around, a new feature that they want to release or whatever it might be. Quite often when we ask them, okay, so why have we done this? They're like, oh, because it means that they can flatten this. Okay. And what they're doing is amazing work, but having the questions to ask them and get out the information around why they actually did it is such an exercise. And the end result is really beneficial to the customer, but it takes a complete mindset shift to be able to think like this, right?
How, coming back to the jobs to be done piece, how do you orientate people to that in terms of what is a job to be done?
Yeah, so when we onboard a new person within the growth marketing team, we get them to read the book, we get them to listen to the podcast, and then we're bringing them into customer conversations. So it's more of a kind of organic journey into understanding it, and it is a bit of a lifelong thing to really wrap your head around it. Like even now, I'm still having to shift my perspective into, okay, is this functional, is this psychological, is it emotional, or is it just straight technical?
Yeah, just need to do a thing. Yeah. I really like that approach though of giving people the theoretical understanding. Did you show the milkshake video?
Yes, the milkshake
of course.
video. Yeah.
But then pairing it up with customer conversations is a great way of just really getting people to fine tune their ears and listening for it once you've gotten that technical understanding. I really like that approach actually. Sorry, my cogs are whirring. I'm sat there thinking, okay, well, how can we do that on our onboarding process?
Yes. Well, and it's funny because when you get on customer calls and you go, okay, so how can I help you today? What are you looking for? They go, oh, I just, for your instance, it'll be, oh, I need to make more sales. You're like, okay, why?
Yep.
Why? Are you losing money? Are you feeling like your industry's declining? And you start to ask these questions, which is following the job to be done framework, and the amount of insight that you get is life-changing to this business.
I remember one of my first jobs out of university, I was working at a company in Australia that manufactured and sold dry docking systems.
Oh. A dry docking system?
Waterproof parking spaces for boats, basically. To put a long story short. And I remember taking a call from a client. I was just like the marketing assistant. I'd started on $35,000 a year. It was gone. Anyway, super junior burgers job, but it was a great start for me. And I remember taking this phone call from somebody who called in and like, oh, I've got a 24-foot Sea Ray and I'm looking for a price on one of the models. I'm like, oh, I know that one. That's $16,900. Thanks. Phone call ends, and I trotted through into the sales manager's office, pleased as punch. I'm like, I've given someone a price. And they're like, what boat do they use? Where do they park it? Do they use it with the kids? And they're asking me all of these questions that like, after 15 years in the field that they just knew intuitively to ask. And I'm sat there thinking, oh God, I painted a very black and white picture here. And it's exactly what they said. They're like, you've got to find the color. You've got to be able to find the nuance and the actual drivers that are causing that person to want to do this thing. And that, I think, is the beauty of that jobs to be done framework and that kind of curiosity question asking mindset in marketing.
It's the curiosity, isn't it? It's building a story around the need that they have.
Absolutely. Yeah. On the subject of need, I'm going to ask a couple of kind of closing questions here because believe it or not, we've nearly gone through our time, which is actually a shame because I'm really enjoying this conversation. Maybe we'll have to do another follow-up on it at some point. But looking at the New Zealand software as a service landscape, where do you see the industry going? What do you see the gaps are? What's your outlook for it?
Oh, look, I'm really, I'm not political in the sense of coming in and talking about the money that the government's putting in. Other people do that.
Yep.
Where do I see it going? I think we are on the edge of a very interesting time with AI. And I really feel like we're still not quite there yet. Give it maybe another 6 months to a year. And I think we'll start to see the way business is done change dramatically. If you look at what's happening with 3 News being shut down, I think that's quite a pivotal point where it's like, okay, traditional media no longer can make money. How is that going to affect other industries where particular jobs are getting replaced by AI or other channels, more innovative options? So I think we're just right on the edge of a massive shift into more automation, more kind of user-generated content, more demand, almost more community-based softwares and practices that serve the people rather than larger corporations, kind of government-owned entities.
It's almost a democratization.
It is. Yeah, I think it's slowly starting to happen, and it will be giving the power to people to create no-code apps, to find the answers that they want using AI, to create a website, create a product. There's so many more options for people.
And then one last question, how do you see the role of community organizations like Kiwi SAS then being part of that change?
Yeah, I think what Bruce is doing is amazing, and it's really fulfilling a need that the New Zealand tech sector has been missing for a long time. So I think looking at kind of the next few years of what they're hoping to achieve within the economy and connecting people together and sharing information, I'm really hoping that it allows people to kind of level up in terms of learning new practices and working together, finding talent, hopefully bringing younger talent into the New Zealand tech sector. But there's a lot of opportunity there, and there's a lot more growth that can happen, but it takes time, it takes investment, it takes the right people to come on board, so it's great to be a part of it.
Fantastic. Look, I think that's us on time. Producer Lou has given me the raise of the eyebrow, but thank you so much for the conversation. I really, really enjoyed that on so many different levels. So thank you, and enjoy the rest of the session today.
Yeah, thanks, Dale.
That's that. Thanks for listening to We Do B2B by Blue Ocean. Now, brace for CTAs. If you want to join and grow the community, make sure to subscribe wherever your eyes and ears absorb information. Don't forget to switch on notifications so you know when the latest episodes drop. And for more B2B goodness, be sure to follow Blue Ocean, the B2B agency, on LinkedIn. Now look, you know how this next piece works. The more reviews we get, the faster this thing grows. So please do for us what you hope your customers would do for you. Leave a review and share your thoughts. Let's stay connected and keep the B2B marketing conversation going.